Good evening, everybody, and welcome to All for United, an All for United show with a difference. Topical Tuesday, whatever you want to call it. But today's topic is anyone who watches All for United actually will know that it's a term that I don't agree with, I don't subscribe to, I don't pay any attention to, and anyone who watches All for United knows me will know my thoughts on the term world class. But before we get into it, and we are going to touch on a very, very small preview on Thursday's second leg. Going to be a very, very difficult one. I'd also like to touch on Harry Maguire's performance over the weekend, which I thought was pretty good after a 20-minute maybe false start, so to speak, although we'll get into that in a bit more detail. But before we do, I've got my guests. I've got Dan, who's on mute before I hand him over, and I've also got Johnny K. So Dan, if you take yourself off mute, let people know how you are. How are you, pal?
I'm all right, mate. I'm good. A bit tired. I've been up since 3 a.m, so I won't fall to sleep, though, I promise.
Yeah, I've had a busy day myself. What about yourself, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. I've not been up that early, but I've been pretty restless over the past few weeks. But yeah, all right, Dan, I'll stay awake.
Good. We'll make sure you do. Well, look, let's get into it then. World class. Oh dear me. World class. Where does it come from? Where does it derive? What does it mean? Look, to me, I think to class a player as world class, I think it's kind of an easy out. I've always said that football is not just about a dribbling ability. It isn't just about a passing ability. It isn't about a scoring ability, a defensive ability, a goalkeeping ability, a midfield ability, a fullback ability, a central striker ability. It's about the whole game. And I've been in debates for many a year. As you all know, I'm old. And I've been in debates many a year where people have come to me and said, this particular player, oh, what a world-class effort that is. And I just look at them and think, what on earth are you talking about? What do you mean, what a world-class effort that is? Why does that particular strike make it any better than, oh, that was a decent strike? Why did it suddenly elevate from a decent strike to a world-class strike? And I've asked this question many a time, even on this channel, on various debates and shows that we've had, and said, can somebody explain to me the meaning of world-class? Because it gets chucked around without anybody quantifying exactly what world-class is to me. And so when I'm talking to, I'm going to bring you guys in quickly, but I just want to make this point. When I talk to young kids about the art of football, and we're just sitting around and we're having a bit of a chin wag before we go train, and always say to them, what do you think makes a good footballer? And all I get is, well, somebody who can beat 4 or 5 players and then stick one in the top bins, as they call it today. They don't, that's what they say. And my response has always been, football isn't about beating 2, 3, 4, or 5 players. It's about intelligence. It's about using your brain that enables you to go on that journey of beating 1 or 2 or 3 players. It's how you utilize the ball. It's what you do with your feet. It's what you do with your vision and your thought process. That's what football's about. So, Dan, I'm going to put it in your very capable hands for you to explain to me or agree with me about whether you think the phrase world class or the term world class is warranted.
I semi-agree and semi-disagree. I'm sort of on the fence with it. So I think you can use the term world class. I think there's definitely world class players been and gone in terms of, you would say Ronaldo and Messi was world class. You would say Pele, Maradona, world class. My issue with the phrase world class is it's given too freely, quickly.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
A player will play good for 2 seasons, which is absolutely nothing in terms of longevity, and they'll be world class. They'll have 4 good seasons. They'll be world class. It's just knocked about so much. It's sort of lost its meaning, in my opinion. So I always get pelters for this opinion, but I don't mind getting pelters now and again. I always thought Eden Hazard was vastly overrated. He was always called world class, constantly compared with Messi and Ronaldo. And it's not me saying he's a bad player, because he's not a bad player. He's a very good player. But he was never anywhere near the standard of Messi and Ronaldo in terms of, yes, for one season, he was very, very good. Just like Mo Salah was really, really good for one season. Ronaldo and Messi have done it for a decade. So to compare the three, as it were, I find it infuriating. I think it happens more now than ever before because of FIFA. It's what you're describing is basically what kids do on Ultimate Team. They take on 5 players and whack the ball in the top bins. And if you can do that, you're world class.
Just to tip you off on that one, I was on a show about 2 years ago, and I made a point about me being a legacy fan, that clubs aren't interested in me anymore. They're interested in the younger generation, the FIFA generation. Those are the ones that are begging their parents to buy them the tops, making sure you get the right footy boots. Have you got the right ball and that type of thing? And I made that very point. And I'm not undermining your point, by the way. Please don't think that I am. But I made that very point about 2 years ago. And then, funnily enough, the day after, somebody within the British media made a point about legacy fans. And so All for United got it in first. I just thought I'd mention that.
To be fair, legacy fans are a dying breed, because it's just, I mean, I'm like sort of on the cusp. I'll be glad. It's weird. Like, you see some news. I was playing Football Manager today, and like certain players are retiring now, and I can remember watching them play when they was 20. And I'm not that old. It's just, you know what I mean? It just creeps up on you a little bit. But the term world class is it should only be for a handful of players, in essence, probably 11. And the way I define world class is, if I say somebody's world class, there's not really a debate to be had about it. That's what makes them world class. Whereas if you say, for example, Hazard's world class, and you get a 60-40 split, he's not world class. Not enough people think he's world class. If I say Ronaldo is world class, Ronaldo is world class. There's only a handful of people that would disagree that Messi was world class. You think about the best left backs in the Premier League, and this is the way I define world class. If someone said to me Dennis Irwin is the best left back in the Premier League history, it's very hard to argue with. Just like if somebody says Ashley Cole is the best left back in Premier League history, it is very difficult to argue with. You could make a counterpoint for players to be as good, like the whole Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard debate, but it's universally agreed that they're world class. The issue for me is John Terry was at the top of his game for 12 years. If you ignore, it's hard to ignore, but if you ignore the issues off the pitch and even some on the pitch, he was at the top of his game for 10 to 12 years. That is what makes a world-class defender. Not someone that's good for 4 seasons and then drops out. Even you look at someone like Ian Wright. Ian Wright didn't turn up at football till 26, 27. And he was amazing for 7-8 years. It's, for me, world-class and consistency go hand in hand. It's got to be together. I think people get confused between the difference between elite and consistent and world class. There's a definite leap. Like I've said, and again, took loads of pelters for this, football's just about consistency. So I can remember a few years back, Swansea, when he was in the Premier League, I can't remember his name for the life of me. Centre midfielder, absolutely wonderful on the ball. He was just amazing at everything he did, because he did 5-yard passes, 6-yard passes, kept the game ticking over. And what he did was so good. He just wasn't consistent. So he did it for 10 out of 30 games, whereas Michael Carrick could do it for 35 out of 38 games, or Scholes could do it for 38 games. For me, world class is definitely overused, but I do think it can be used.
Well, that's a fair assessment. Before I come back on that, I'll get Johnny's thoughts, because
Yeah.
I'm quite interested in John's thoughts on this. The fountain of knowledge that is. What's your thoughts on world class?
Yeah. Well, to begin with, Sue, I mentioned this pre-show. I think it's helpful to get a definition, or the best definition. So I got it from the Oxford Dictionary. It's quite vague. It says, of a person, thing, or activity of or among the best in the world.
Yeah, you
It's
think?
literally, it can mean anything you want it to mean. In
I,
other
I mean, we could be world class, couldn't we?
Yeah.
That's what that suggests.
Yeah, literally. I mean, I personally agree that it's not a term I like to use unless, like Dan mentioned, it's a select few. For me, if you're going to talk about world class, you have to be in contention. I think you have to be in the top 2 or 3 in your position in the world for over, at least 2 to 3 years, I would argue. You'd get in any team across the world, and literally you would get in any team. I'd also say that you could argue that football has evolved and you won't look out of place in a team, playing a few decades ago, possibly. That's another.
That's an area I want to bring up, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's for me. And Dan's right. There's very few players who I think you could say that will transcend all generations and all that. If you were to debate, say, Manchester United's greatest ever 11 of all time, players like Bessler and Charlton, they will probably fit in the modern game. You could argue someone like Roy Keane might have played in the 60s, maybe, and players like that. I was a huge admirer of Paul Scholes. And then also, I think the other thing you've had is you're revered in your position, where opposition are like, we fear that player. Like a midfielder, we tend to use midfield maestro. I've only just learned recently, maestro is teacher in Spanish. So practically a teacher in your own position dictating how a game should be played, I would argue. So for me, it's, we can debate about who your class as world class in our team at the moment, but for me, it should be reserved for a specific few and all that. As for you mentioned about, world class strike, world class goal, I prefer not to use the term world class goal or whatever. I prefer to use the term top class because for me it's if you spelt a 30-yard in the top corner and it's unsavable, then great goal, and for me, what do you class as a world class goal as well? For me, it's like you belt on in third yard in the corner. I love a good counter-attacking goal. I love a good goal where you pass it 30 times and finish off with a great finish. And for me, that's, you can even debate what's the best goal you've ever seen. It will vary depending on your opinion on how you think football should be played. So literally, I think it can mean anything you want it to mean. But for me, it's you're revered in your position over a period of time, and and for me, you're capable of producing moments. When your team most needs it, you can get in any team in the world, and for me, you will transcend generations, in my opinion.
So that kind of adds to the debate then, because I always think the term world class goes hand in hand with the term the GOAT, the greatest of all time, or the best player in the world, etc., etc. Now, what do I look in look for in a teammate? I look purely for influence. How influential are you going to be when we cross that white line? How are you going to be able to influence the game so much so that we're on the winning side rather than the losing side. But then he's got to be able to look at me and say, how am I going to be able to influence that result? And then I've got to be able to look at another player and vice versa. So you've got to look at the whole squad and say, well, look, how are you going to influence the game? And I talk about segments in football all the time. You can influence your certain part on the pitch, but can you overall influence the whole outcome of the match? And this is where I struggle with individual awards sometimes with football, because at the end of the day, you cross the white line as a team of 11 and you come off as a team of 11, and you've all contributed to that game. It's that one person, if he has the ability to stand out during the game and actually take the game by the scruff of the neck, dictate the pace of the game, to take the flow of the game, dictate when you push, when you stay, kind of self-coach yourself on the pitch, be able to coach others in and around you on the pitch, be able to organize, be able to do pretty much everything you're supposed to do as a footballer. To me, then that elevates you above other players, but it doesn't elevate you to the very top of the tree, because as you both have quite rightly said, you've got to be consistent week in, week out in training and on match days. You've got to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder to the very best players in world football. There's a massive difference between the very best players and the GOATs of the game. And do you stand the test of time? Would you stand the test of time? And Diego Maradona, most people would say, would stand the test of time. Okay. And here's the other thing. Diego Maradona was playing in a time where pitches were awful. Footballs were like rugby balls in terms of they weren't spherical as they are today. There was no modern technology. There was no lightness of a football. There was heavy football boots. There was kits that were so tight and so, if it got wet, it would just cling to you. Whereas today, kits are designed to kind of absorb a lot of your sweat, etc. I think there's so many variables that move you away from who is truly world class. Noticed I'm doing the old speech marks, or to who is just a great footballer. And the other thing is, most people now would say, well, Ronaldo and Messi, 100% world class. That's what they say. But who are you measuring them against? Are you measuring Ronaldo of today against the original R9, original Ronaldo? How would they stack together? How would Messi and Maradona stack together? The great debate of the Premier League's great centre backs. Well, how would Steve Bruce stand up to John Terry? For example, he scored more goals than John Terry. I think he won more titles than John Terry. But how would he stack up? The Virgil van Dijk, Rio Ferdinand comparison. How would that go? And it isn't to do with stats. It's to do with ability and influence on the pitch. And I go back to when I talk to, kids, and when a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, they get the football, they just want the dribble, they want to do the Ronaldo soup, they want to do the Messi this, the Messi that. Here's a question for you, both of you. Lionel Messi, deemed world class. How many right foot goals do you think he's probably scored in his career? How many times have you seen him use his right foot to do a 40-yard pass?
I would say less than 25.
It's less than 10. It's my point being that if you are to deem somebody to be world class, shouldn't they be the very best with their left foot, the very best with their right foot, the very best with their vision, the very best with their head on a swivel, the best tackler, the best header of a football, the person with the best ability to be able to stand at the right place at the right time in football? What would that constitute?
See, I think this is where it falls down a little bit in terms of.
Exactly.
I like to use a word which is a little bit different to world class, which is generational. So I don't think in my lifetime I will see a player as good as Messi and Ronaldo. Some might come close, but I grew up. Obviously, Ronaldo came to us when I was a teenager, and that's what I watched. Messi and Ronaldo has basically dominated for 10 to 15 years, and that to me is generational. I think there's a few players that you could possibly look at and think for the next 10 to 15 years, these could be generational, like Mbappe, Haaland. But the term world class should really be saved for a select few. But and this is the issue. It's all down to preference. So you might love Cafu because he was fast, strong, tenacious. He was good at attacking. And then you might love Gary Neville because he was an hard worker, never ever going to be top of his class, but then played for the best club in the world for 10 years, winning numerous titles, and it was pure determination that got him there. And that might be your idea of a great player. Like, I shouldn't admit this, but I think Henderson's done wonders at Liverpool through determination and never ever been the best player in the pack, but he gave them something that even Gerrard couldn't give them and got them a title. And it was because of his determination and his ability to lift those around him. So there's no coincidence. I think there's a season where Liverpool they didn't play very well, and it coincided with Henderson getting injured, and then he went on to win the title when he came back. It was no coincidence that he was so overused because he was basically the glue, and that is what you look at. Well, some people look at, but then other people look at. Well, I like Ronaldinho because he can do a step over, take on 5 players, and score. But would you want that in your team? Because if you don't want that in your team, you're not really well. Ronaldinho is probably a bad example because he's one of them that's up there. But it's all down to preference. Do you want a fast centre back? Do you want a slow centre back that's strong? Do you want these loads? What kind of goalkeeper do you want? Like coming back to what you said about the Ballon d'Or, Player of the Year. It is massively a popularity contest. Like these years, Messi's favourite to win it this year. And he wouldn't be my pick this year, but he's favourite to win it. Of course, he's won the World Cup. He's definitely going to win it. His stats are still amazing, but he wouldn't be my choice because I think players have played better than him this season. But I go back to Dan's going to have an heart attack if he's watching this. I go back to De Gea in, I think it was 17-18 or 18-19. He saved something like 17.8 goals. It's higher than anything you've seen in a season. He wasn't even nominated. He was not even on the list of nominations for goalkeepers because it's not just about, are you a good goalkeeper? Are you a good player? What you like as a person? Are you a bit of a shithouse on the pitch? So they don't like you. So
by the way, James Maddison has been nominated for this one and Bruno Fernandes hasn't.
Which is
no, I did say that, yeah,
absolutely mental in my opinion.
Yeah.
But again, I had a bit of a discussion about Fernandes and De Bruyne today. They're closer than people like to ever admit. But De Bruyne makes me laugh because he starts the season, plays 10 games, ridiculously high level. Then he'll disappear for 20 games. Last 10 games of the season, he'll come back and win the league and he'll get Player of the Year. He's done it twice. But if you looked at the seasons, he probably shouldn't have won it. But
no,
the media have pushed it.
But you made a point, Dan, and a really good point. And John, I want to bring you into this, and that's determination.
Yeah.
I talk about determination all the time, attitude and aptitude. And determination is a value that people just completely write off because it doesn't fit the so-called eye test, does it? No. People watch football, but do they really actually watch football? The answer to that is no. They just look at it and think, wow, did you see that round the world turn? That would infuriate me if I'm in that team. Completely infuriate.
When Anthony did the spin, that really made you happy.
Yeah, no, infuriating me. I would have told him. I would have told him at half time as well. It would have been me shouting at him, saying, "What the fuck do you think you're doing? There's no time for that." And so, John, determination. Just sum up where you think determination can carry you in football, and is it a better skill to have than doing around the world and being able to beat 6 players and that type of thing? Because I think it's a massively underrated but important.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, I completely agree with the determination. You have to be determined to be the best in your position, really, and contribute to your team. Henderson's a very good example. There could be an argument that he might be a better team player than what Gerrard was. Gerrard was obviously the better player as a whole, but maybe Henderson was more of a team player argument because with Gerrard, he always wants to be the hero kind of thing, whereas Henderson hasn't. Looks like he kind of thinks what's best for the team, Frigs, and pulling that. And I think that's something you got to respect Klopp for. Maybe Liverpool, a lot of their team aren't particularly, might not be the best. United probably have better individual players than Liverpool, but it's the determination that gets them to. Obviously, they've fallen flat this season, but over multiple seasons, it's making you believe that you can achieve something and that, and that you, even if you're not playing for several games, it's kind of like this is what Ten Hag is trying to instill. It's like players like Lindelof and Maguire haven't had a chance this season. Now that Varane and Martinez are injured, now's their chance to say, right, you need to come and do a job now. This is your opportunity. And I think that's what Ten Hag has done brilliantly. And I think that's down to you as players as well. It's down to you to get the best out of yourself and contribute to the team. And that I would mention it, like when it comes to like players who, you mentioned Messi, may not have used his right foot that often, for example. And I look at play, crossing generations and all that. Unfortunately, not many people saw him, but looking at records and all that, arguably Duncan Edwards might have been the best player there ever was in terms of like he could do a job on any position on a football pitch. How many players could actually play centre forward and play in defence and be just as good at both? Yeah,
Again, that begs the question again, doesn't it? Again,
exactly. So
we're too quick to use the term world class, but you're not really thinking about what you're saying. Even you listen to Talk Sport, etc. Sky Sports. Oh, he's world class. He's world class. Explain to us why you're saying that. And I think you're right, Duncan Edwards. I didn't see him.
None of us say that, but I'd like to get the view based on, I speak to my old man and we get the views on, from people who did see him. And they, from people who did see him, they said he was probably the best all-round player there ever was. Literally, he could play in any position. He could use right foot, left foot, header.
My uncle said that. Yeah, my uncle said that. Yeah,
exactly.
Where I work, we get people coming into the shop that are of the older generation, and there's one guy in particular who was like, you need to go home and get your YouTube up or whatever it's called, and just watch videos of Duncan Edwards. He said he could do absolutely everything. He said forget about George Best, but he can do every. And I was like, I'll have a look.
Well, Sir Bobby Charlton, he said he was the only player he ever played for or against where he felt inferior to him. George Best, right. And ultimately, I think when you look at, and this is why I think determination is important. It's like who can get the best. You gotta get the best out of yourself, but it's also down to management also to make you believe as a team that you can achieve and such, and do you buy into it and all that. I know players, you look at players like teams like Chelsea, for example, they haven't always respected the manager now when it's their fault, but it's about down to instilling belief in the manager. That's why we achieved so much under Ferguson in that he built a belief in the team that you could go on. When we won the treble, when we won the league and Champions League, that's not enough. You got to go again. That kind of, it's instilling that belief you are good enough as a team. And the other thing is you don't have to be world class to contribute. There are many. I was watching channel a few months back. I think it was that Wayne Barton. He's like, when you look at the best Manchester United teams, you've often had 2 or 3 world-class players in the 11 and about 8, players who like work really hard. Like really hard, and that's for me.
You have to have a mix of hard-working footballers, talented footballers, and influential footballers. You have to have that mix. That's what a team and a squad is all about. And I go back to it again. It's all about influence. Influence is a real key thing to winning a football match. And John, you're right. Whether that be the manager, a coach, the tea lady, the chauffeur, or the boot man, the kit man, it doesn't matter. It's how can you influence your team, the players around you, to win that football match. That's what it's all about. And that, to me, dispels the world-class myth, and it's all about influence. So that's what I think. Guys, you won't believe this. We've done half an hour.
I know, it's bad, isn't it? It's one of them conversations you can talk about.
Talking about world-class. So just sum it up yourselves briefly, and then I want to talk a bit about Harry Maguire, and then I just want to spend a few minutes talking about the upcoming very difficult task of going to Seville on Thursday. So, Dan, your thoughts, mate? Just to sum up.
So I can sum it up in.
Shall we answer the question? How many current United players would you say are world class
in this squad?
Yeah.
Well, I'd say 0, wouldn't I? How many influential players?
I don't think they would. To be fair, I don't think there would be any. I don't think any have been at the top of the game enough to be considered world class. I'm trying to think if I've missed anybody really important out, but I don't think I have.
Influential players for me, you'd put Casemiro, Eriksen in there.
Yeah.
There's many elite players in the team, like Casemiro and David De Gea. I would consider as elite.
But De Gea holds the most clean sheets, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes back to the old. It's just thrown around too quickly. Is Casemiro?
John's made a good question. John's question is relevant, though, isn't it? It's perfectly relevant. So come on, because it's made you think straight away, Dan.
Well, I always go back to Fergie. So I can remember when I was younger, Fergie basically said the best footballer he'd ever seen coming through the youth ranks was Ravel Morrison.
I went to school with him,
Yeah, and he didn't have the aptitude or determination or mental ability to take on the mantle that Fergie had left for him.
Dan, if I'm not mistaken, he's just either in the last few months he's compared Dele Alli to something similar, hasn't he? He felt Dele Alli had the ability to become a really top footballer, but
well, you look. There's an interview with Dele Alli with Mourinho, isn't there? Mourinho warns him. He literally says to him, "This is your future if you don't apply yourself now."
And look at him.
He's absolutely spot on. So you've got to have a mix of everything. But my personal opinion is it's overused. I think there's lots of elite players, but just a small handful of actual world-class players that you really can't argue that, no, not many people would argue that. In fact, if you're arguing that Maradona's not world-class, there's something wrong with you. And I think that's where your bar is. You've got to be able to say this person's world class, and apart from people open for a reaction, they just go, "Yeah, you're right." Other than that, we see, I mean, Liverpool are probably the prime example. They were the best team the Prem's ever seen. Robertson's the best left back the Prem's ever seen.
Exactly. Great
what
example.
have they actually achieved? And don't get me wrong, I think because of certain situations at City, they've been shafted a little bit. But in the context of the whole Premier League, what's Van Dijk achieved? He's got 1 title and had 4 good seasons. Robertson's got 1 title and had 4 good seasons. Is he truly world class that he's better than Ashley Cole? He's not. Is he better than Dennis Irwin? No, he's not. Will he be in 5 years? We don't know. But he's not now.
Just before John comes in, and we talk about Dennis Irwin, and I rate Dennis Irwin as the best fullback in Premier League history on his ability to play both fullback positions.
He is one player that will transcend all the generations.
Left back, right back, free kicks, penalties.
Yeah. But somebody said to me about Ashley Cole, and I agree, Ashley Cole was a top player. But I said to them, I said, I agree, but what do you think made him a top player? And he looked at me blank because he couldn't tell me. He could see it, but he couldn't articulate what it was. And he said to me, what do you like about Ashley Cole? I liked about Ashley Cole, he was tenacious. He could tackle. His positional play was great. He wasn't the best going forward, but he could go forward. Okay. Wasn't brilliant on his right foot, but his left foot ability was enough to carry him through games at that particular time. Would Ashley Cole stand the test of time today when you've got a player like Anthony running at you, or you've got a speedy Rashford, or you've got a Haaland pushing yourself out onto the left back position, because you're taller, you're bigger, you're stronger, that type of thing. And that's an interesting question, a question for another time, by the way, guys, because we could really talk about, well, I think we could have a good 2-hour debate on this. Yeah. I really do. So I just want to bring John in, and then I really want to talk about Harry Maguire, and then I want to touch on Thursday, the slippery Thursday.
Yeah. For me, it's it does get overused. The term world class. For me, I put the questions here. I personally think probably at this moment, based on numerous years, I think Casemiro is probably the closest in terms of being the best in his position, or one of the best in his position, and could probably get into any team around the world. I think there's a couple which might be on the cusp potentially if they continue to be. You mentioned Bruno. You can argue Rashford's form this season, but he didn't do it last season. So I think they need to make sure that they continue to do it on, for the next couple of years, and then maybe you can put them in conversation. But for me, if I had to pick them on, it'd probably be Casemiro at this moment, because he could probably get into any team in the world at this present moment, and probably would have been able to for the past, 4 or 5 years probably. So, but yeah, overall, it's, for me, it's a select few in that position. But like I say, everybody has their own definition.
It's all subjective. Guys, I can't believe 40 minutes, almost 40 minutes has just flown by. I think it's flown by anyway. And it's been a fascinating conversation, one that I think we can continue. And I don't think we've really scratched the surface on really delving into it. So, really, really appreciate that. Just before we move on to Thursday, which will be an interesting game by itself, I want to talk about poor Mr. Harry Maguire again, once again vilified by morons who wouldn't know what a centre-half was if they fell on him, basically. I will be honest, and I was worried for him the first 15 to 20 minutes, or however, as a fellow centre-half, Mr. Maguire, if you're watching this, which I know you won't be, but if you would be, I would have done exactly what you would have done in the first 2 minutes. I would have pulled him back and
thank you for that, Stu, because so many people missed it. So many people missed that if he gets turned, he's out of position.
Yep.
And he shouldn't have been. But so many people missed in the criticism that if he didn't pull him down, we was in big trouble.
He was throw on goal.
It was I'm not trying to raise debate, but if Varane makes that pull,
or Martinez,
yeah, it's an excellent decision because he's been turned. I get the criticism for it because he's out of position and he shouldn't have been out of position that early, that quickly. But he shouldn't. 40 seconds in, they was out.
I think playing the high line, I think
we were pushed up for some reason. I couldn't quite work it out. But what I will say is he grew into the game wonderfully. And he became a really good, solid partnership with Lindelof, what we did see 2 years ago. I think people are, and rightly so, by the way, we're a little bit brainwashed by the partnership of Varane and Martinez, which has been superb this season. There's no two ways about it. But God, Harry M comes in again, once again. He must have been absolutely panic-stricken when he made that mistake. But he dusted himself off. He thought, right, stuff it. I'm just going to carry on and play my game. And I thought he played himself into it wonderful. And I thought he had a great second half. 2 or 3 really good headers. Same with Lindelof. I thought they marshalled the defence well. They got a little bit of help from De Gea in terms of at least once or twice coming off his line. Again, I'm reading that people were saying we got lucky with the handball. Look, there was 4 players around. That could have just landed anywhere. It was just people saying his arms in a natural position. I think he was trying to protect himself from being headbutted twice by.
He was actually holding Martial, I think.
I said at the review, he was unlucky with that header against Sevilla, wasn't he? And you think, why on earth? But whereas I think maybe that handball will, I don't think it was a penalty, but for me, that probably might have been the look that he needed.
I think so. I mean, we're going to rely on Harry. He can't obviously play at the weekend in the cup in the semi-final, but we're going to rely on him big time tomorrow. And I saw a bit of a revelation in that he pushed him at right centre half. And Gary Neville, people were saying, what's the difference between a right and a left centre half? And Gary Neville was right. It's your positional sense, which side of the ball you want to carry it with, where are you more comfortable? And, he did, he got himself back into the game. But I was reading the usual Twitter nonsense and the rhetoric and the agenda that's against Harry. And I just felt that these people, these fans, you've got to open your eyes now and start looking at what he can do and what he can achieve as a centre half. And I thought he was excellent again, once he played himself into the game. So just spend a couple of minutes from you each, just telling me what your thoughts were and where you think his strengths are. I'll start with John this time, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't get people who, as we mentioned, the first 20 minutes, he wasn't good in the first 20 minutes. And we were thinking might be one of those days with him, but he did dust himself down. And that, I think, in fairness, Nottingham Forest, they're not a team that's going to, put a lot of pressure on your goal either. So, it possibly wasn't, the most difficult opposition you could face and that. But yeah, he did dust himself down and he grew into the game. And I thought Lindelof was excellent the other day. I thought it's the best performance he's had in a long time, in my opinion. But for me, he's good at, heading the ball out and that kind of thing. You can make an argument for either of them, because I made the argument that, Varane and Martinez clearly the best partnership that we have this season. That's Ten Hag's preference. Lindelof might be the best one to slot in if one of them's injured, but Maguire is probably the best one for, heading, the ball out.
His aerial ability,
It's like when when he's brought on with 5 minutes to go, like when you're defending one goal, leading the opposition, they're chucking balls into the box, and you want him down that, and he can still do a job. I was at the Everton game the other week, and I thought he was excellent. He was a contender for man of match, and I don't get people who, Man United fans is he's a joke, he's a fridge or whatever. It's like this, and I'm just like, but sure, you want him to do well, and just constantly saying how awful he's not awful. Yeah, he does make mistakes and all that, but don't we all? There have been numerous mistakes from our defence season. That's not me defending him. That's just basic reality and all that. So for me, yeah, he did do well. It'll be interesting to see what happens at Brighton. I think Sevilla might not be too bad because obviously we know he's not the quickest, sense rather than that. But obviously when you're playing in Europe, it tends to be a little bit slower, doesn't it? So for me, maybe on Thursday night, that might be, his type of game. That obviously Sevilla will be a threat and that. But for me, he's got a job like Lindelof. He's got a role to play over the next few weeks. And this is the crunch time in the season and he's going to get his opportunity.
Yeah, I'm rightly so. Danny?
Yeah, I'm obviously... Everyone knows my position on Maguire by now, I think.
Yep, we're the same.
I'll happily defend him to the hilt when he's playing well. And I think they started something like he's the last 12 starts, he's won all 12.
He has.
Five
Yeah,
starts. His last 5 starts have all been clean
You can
sheets.
shove your stats up your
Up your ass.
yeah.
And this, I think, this is what frustrates me because
Yeah.
John sort of touched on it that he's good in the air, and he does not get any credit with being good with his feet, and he's better than Varane with his feet in terms of per 90 minutes. He's a better passer. He hits better long balls. His pass progression's better. His dribbling's better. His interceptions are better. If you compare the two of them, Maguire's in better form than Varane is, but the partnership, and then this is where people fall down. I'm not saying Maguire should start every game over Varane. He's playing better, but partnership-wise, Martinez and Varane are amazing. Everyone's comfortable with it. We've been playing well with it, so you keep it the same because it's like that. But it's an issue that Maguire comes in is very strange to me. I don't see how he could have had a better season than he's had now in terms of what he's been left to do. So we've sort of said to Maguire, you're not going to start. You're going to come on when we need you, and you're going to play when we need you. He's not lost a game in 7 months. We've won the last 12 that he started, and we've got clean sheets in the last 5. He literally couldn't do any better. But then you'll still get, well, he's a bit slow. Okay. De Gea didn't even have a shot to face the other day because the defense played that well. Not one shot on target.
Yeah.
Because someone said the other day, in fact today, Lindelof played better than him. If you go on any stat site that bases it on more than just your eyes, Maguire was rated higher on every single one. But then if you say, well, I think Maguire played better than Lindelof, or you're an idiot, he's a fridge. And it's just, I've said it before, and I agree with Jarvis there. It won't work in the long run, and I hope he goes for himself because he's not going to get given a second chance, no matter how many decent stats. He could go unbeaten to the end of the season and lift 2 more trophies, and people will still say that it's down to Varane and Martinez and not him, even though he's been a massive part of us staying unbeaten, getting clean sheets. Like Dan, bless him, tagged me in a thing saying David De Gea's now got the most clean sheets in Europe. Harry Maguire's been involved in 12 of those, which is half. And he's been involved in the last 5.
He's got the golden.
You know,
he's holding the golden.
You'll say, well, you're slagging off Maguire, saying Maguire shouldn't play, but he's helping Day win the clean sheet. The lad didn't face a shot the other day, and he must have been delighted. And I was buzzing. Just to touch on Day, when there's a moment, he comes out, he catches the ball, and he throws it quickly. And I was more excited then than when the goal went in because that's what we need. We need that quick play. I think we nearly got a chance from it as well. And then you look at the second goal. Which, by the way, was an amazing goal. I think nearly every player touched the ball. But it starts with Harry Maguire putting the attacker on his arse by cutting inside. And he slips. And then it starts the play. And it's just... I just think there's so much of an agenda against him. It's impossible for it to work now in terms of going forward.
The problem.
Problem. And not only that, I think... in the long run, Maguire doesn't want to be this guy. Maguire doesn't want to come off the bench because he's a better partnership than him. He's going to want to play. He's 30 now. He wants to play. The best thing United fans can hope for, that even if you don't back him, is that he carries on this form to the end of the season. Because then when we say we want 50 million for him, 40 million for him, there's value to it. Instead of there being no value whatsoever. I said to Dan, even the most hardened of Harry Maguire hater has got to admit we need him. The way it's panned out, the way the season's gone,
we do without him. Yeah.
You've got to try and back him. And I thought, other than probably 15, 20 minutes where he was a bit shaky, he was so good the other day. He was brilliant. But I thought the whole defense was brilliant.
I mean,
Dalot at left back was incredible. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. Like someone tweeted just before, like, oh, Dalot at left back, WTF. And I was like, well, he played there for Milan. He did quite well at Milan at left back. And it kept Wan-Bissaka in, who was in form. So I was not against this at all. I personally think we'll see the same defence against Sevilla.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you next. That's what I was going to ask you. I just want to touch on Jarvis's point quickly. He's absolutely right. And me and Dan and John are very well aware of it. If we play a high line, we're going to have problems. But and we do. And we didn't play such a high line after.
This is the thing, though. This is another thing. So in terms of the high line, with Maguire, we're always higher up the pitch because we control the play better. So it's all right saying that it's not going to work, but in the last, I think it's 3 of the last 5 games, we've had our 3rd, 4th, and 5th highest XG of the season and highest possession. It does work. I get what people are saying. If the ball goes over the top, he might get caught. But because we play well, like high up against Forest, if you play that well and you've got Casemiro in front of you, of all people, it does work. It does work that he's at a high line. And everyone's been shouting out for a high line. It works better. That's what Ten Hag wants to do. The stats don't match up to Maguire can't play a high line because he always plays a high line. Martinez and Varane, the line's 20 yards back. And that's...
Actually, on 5 occasions on Sunday, Maguire was caught in 20 yards from their goal on 5 occasions.
He kept bombing forward. Yeah, there was one where he went forward, and I thought he was going to lose the ball. And he managed to keep it, but
he kept it well.
Yeah, he kept it well, and I was just like, I think the issue is you're that used to people jumping on him. I genuinely think when he does stuff, oh fucking hell, I hope we don't make a mistake.
He's never going to win.
You're going to get battered if you make. Someone said it. He could score a 40-yard worldie in the FA Cup final, a world-class strike, let's say, and some United fans would be annoyed that it's happened. Like Dan, for example, went to bed annoyed that Maguire had played well, and like wanting to dig me out over De Gea. And I was glad that De Gea played well, and really glad Maguire played well because we need it. We need it to the end of the season.
We need them playing well. Well, talking of which, guys, we've got we're on 52 minutes. Brilliant show, lads. We haven't had the viewers tonight, but that doesn't really matter. I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you guys. It's been absolutely brilliant. So, look, let's quickly look to Thursday. Let's just get your teams and your first goal scorer and the results. I'm going to quickly throw my very short 2-penneth in, and you guys know I can't be short, but I will be on this occasion. I think we might just come out on the right side. But I'm telling you now, fellas, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I think we will come out on the right side 2-1. And here's the thing. For once, I've got absolutely no rhyme or reason to suggest other than I'm desperate for us to go through. My head would tell me it's not wise. We can't sustain any more games and any more injuries. But my heart is desperate to win the Europa League. I just really, really want to win that trophy. I think we'll come out on the right side, but I think it will be right the very, very death. Villarreal at home type scenario where we might just sneak it. I'm not going to go through my team. I'll let you guys do that, but that's my thoughts on it. But it's going to be touch and go all game. It's going to swing this game. It's going to be very, very, very hard. Very hard. Okay. Anyone can go first, don't mind.
Well, I think it'll be interesting because I think there's been a few hints that some of the players might be back for the game. Like there's been whispers that, Shaw, maybe it's a bit, even I mean, unbelievable, even Rashford might have an outside chance, but who knows? I mean, I do think you might get a couple of players back for it. It's just whether Ten Hag trusts them all. To play,
got to be the bench. Got to be the bench for me.
Yeah. So for me, it's going to be. I do agree a bit attack game. Initially, I was going to go for a 1-0, but I think when I was on the review show, with you, Dan, wasn't I? And I said that it's 2-2. The feeling was we did throw it away in that, and indeed we did last Thursday. But the away goal rule doesn't count anymore. And it's practically winner takes all. And for me, if we play anything like that, and it was 2 lucky deflected goals, wasn't it, that they got in the end? It will be tough. We haven't beaten them, and you know what? I can see it being an end game. I was initially going to go 1-0, but I think I can see there being a few goals actually in that, and maybe defenses might slack a little bit I'm actually going to go for us to win 3-2.
Brilliant. What's your starting 11 and first goal scorer? By the way, and I totally agree with this, and I will say this: we will, and I said it.
I do agree. It will be a late goal, though.
Yeah, I have to. I said it after the game. 100%. You know, even if Sevilla score first on Thursday, it makes no difference to the way that we approach the game.
Yeah,
I think we're always going to need 2 goals. So anyway, yeah. Give us your side, John.
My team, I think De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire. It's interesting to see if Shaw does come back or Malacia. If they do, then I think he might play Shaw if he's back. If not, I think he'll go with Delo. Casemiro. He might go Fred, Ericsson, and forwards Anthony, Martial, and Sancho. Goal scorers. I can see Anthony.
I can see him scoring.
I can actually see. I think Sancho might get one as well. So, and I'll probably go. I'll go Anthony, Martial, and Sancho to get the 3.
3-2 from Johnny K. What about yourself, Dan?
I'm gonna agree with you. I think 2-1. I think we'll be on the right side. I personally, I sat. We said it on the review show. I have no idea how we drew that game. Not the foggiest.
No. I do.
2 of the weirdest goals I've ever seen. And then other than that, I don't really see how they had any other chances. To be honest, it was not good, Sevilla, in that game.
Do you know what you had? You had a ruggedness, an absolute determination to stick 2 fingers up to the whole of the UK and say, that's it. Well, you know, and you get that in football sometimes, Dan. You could be cruising. I've been in matches where we've been cruising and suddenly, bang, you've had this absolute smack right in the face because somebody slipped at the wrong time, or they've seen something in a player. A winger's seen something in the left back, or we've seen something Maguire's. You know, we were talking about personality at the very beginning of the match. That centre forward, who was useless by the way, he's decided I'm going to see if I can get past Maguire. I'm going to give it a go. Yeah, I'm going to give it a go. And you see that in games. You look at players and you think, you're on one at the minute, mate. I can have you. And you go for it. And you absolutely push and you push and you push and you push. And that's what they did. And you're absolutely right, Dan. You're fucking spot on here, mate. They didn't do anything brilliant to unpick us.
No.
What they did was they took their chances. Every time they saw get at it, they did.
We say they took the chances, but
I didn't mean chances like that. What I meant by taking the chances, they took a chance
blood.
to whip the ball in or go past the play. They do something. They saw it and they thought, right, that's it.
Everything that could go wrong for us in that game in the last 20 minutes went wrong. Obviously, we went down to 10 men before we conceded the second. 2 own goals. I mean, at first I was like, oh, Deja's beat his near post again. But then you watch it back. There's sheer speed. It hits Malacia and then goes to him. I was like, Jesus, I'm surprised he even reacted. It was mad.
What about De Gea, though? For the first time, De Gea wasn't glued on to his line, was he? He was 4 yards out.
Yeah. Ironic.
No, but that's my point.
No.
If he was on his line,
it would hit him and go. Well, the other thing is,
it was the same with the Leeds own goal, wasn't it? With Varane, wasn't it?
If he wasn't stood in the width of the goalpost, maybe just a yard forward, he would have gone wide as well. It's just, and then the Maguire one, he's going out for a throw-in, and it.
I thought it was going into the away fans. I did.
And then suddenly it ends up in the net, and Sevilla are struggling in the league, and they looked like a team that for 70 minutes they looked like a team that was struggling in the league.
They had problems just recently, didn't they? 0-0 against Valencia. Didn't they?
I think they're about.
No, they won 2-0.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they got 2 late goals. Yeah,
I think they're about 16th in the league. They are struggling. They've got their own problems.
They're 7 points above the drop zone now.
Yeah, it's just not good for Sevilla. Normally they're top 7, aren't they?
La Liga now. I think that's why this game's dangerous because it's like this is their season.
Yeah, I just think away games in Europe are just so difficult anyway. Yeah. I personally, I don't think we'll change much. I think maybe one maximum 2 changes from the Forest team. So I would say probably I would go the same back 4. I don't think he's going to rush Shaw back. I think he's going to. I think he's setting Shaw to play left centre back against Brighton.
Centre half Brighton at Wembley.
So I think he's going to probably save him. So I think the only player I'd question mark from that team is probably Eriksen. Is Eriksen fit enough to start another game? So soon, or will he go Fred?
Bruno's out, so I think he'll probably have to play.
Oh yeah, Bruno's suspended, isn't he?
He was amazing, wasn't he, Eriksen on Sunday? So,
we need Sabitzer to see how Sabitzer's. McTominay's still injured, I think.
Yeah, if he's got a groin injury, Sabitzer,
he'll be struggling as well. So I can see probably Fred coming in. But I think if we can just put on a professional performance, like when I say professional, a 1-0 in the 78th minute and just see it out, I'll be happy with that. But I think I deserve a Harry Maguire winner. I'll be honest. I think I deserve it. With all the,
I want a Harry M winner as well.
Yeah, I really want not even a late winner, just a Harry Maguire winner. 45th minute header.
I predict it. He'll get us a big goal between
this season. Yeah, I'm hoping.
I predicted it.
I think though. I mean, Jarvis is talking about
being a club team. Well, in fairness, we have been a club team for 10 years.
Well, he's also talking about, it's quite an astute observation, really.
Yeah,
and he's right. I mean, they did.
Yeah.
You don't need to have brilliant players to change a game of football. You stick a challenge in, you pop an elbow in somewhere, you pull somebody's hair, you drop their shorts down, you do something.
That's why I think that Anthony Acuna battle was fascinating, because it's kind of like they both enjoyed that battle, didn't they? Because Acuna's giving it to him and Anthony's giving it a bit back. It was great to see. It's one of the best.
I am a little bit worried.
I've seen this season, and I think you're going to need that.
He missed one trick, Anthony did, and what he should have done, because Acuna stood him up a lot. Anthony should have barged him and should have gone for the obstruction. I would have put the ball past him, ran into Acuna.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit worried that they're going to be a little bit too cute for us as well. So Fernandez is an absolute pro at the shithousery, and we're going to be. We need it. I say it all the time. Like I think it was Anthony last week dived in the corner and he got a free kick, and I did not give a shit because they do it to us all the time.
Anthony's capable of it.
We need the players to be really on it, because they're going to be on it. They're going to be trying every trick in the book, and we need to match it. We need to make sure. If Sancho's going through and he gets a slight touch, he goes down.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're going to do. And
he's got to run, though.
Did you see Palestri's yellow card again?
Yeah, I know.
It was ridiculous. And Bruno Fernandez was ridiculous as well. Side note, I think I read somewhere Casemiro and Palistri are both a yellow card away from a ban.
They are.
That is an interesting one. Yeah.
But, do you know something, though, Dan? You can't think that, mate. You can't think that.
No, take the yellow. Just get us through. I don't care.
It won't be banned for a game if we go out, Casemiro.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Just what Maguire says. Thought to himself, "I've just got to get on with it, mate. I've just got to go on with it, lads." We've passed the hour. It's been a great show, mate. All of you. I really appreciate you taking your time to join me. Thanks to the people that have watched. Jarvis in the comments, as always. Jarvis is on United Real Therapy, by the way. So if any of you guys want to tune in and support Jarvis like he does for us, please do. And he actually gave you a shout out on that as well the other day.
I actually didn't know that, so I'll drop by on that.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, Jarvis is a big supporter of ours. We should... I think, support Jarvis as much as we can. Guys.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I've subscribed to you, Jarvis. There we go.
Brilliant. He's very, very well spoken and knows his football. Guys, this has been AFU, and this has been the debate about world class. We all have got our own different opinions of it. Mine is the only one that's correct, as usual.
As we're all world-class commentators.
I don't know what shows we've got coming up, so forgive me. I can't. Dan, have you got a show coming up? Have you got a hosting gig?
No. I'm just. I think I'm just on.
I'm sure we'll do it. I'm sure we'll do a review preview.
Yeah.
I would imagine we'll be back probably Friday and Sunday. But in the meantime, this has been All for United. I've been Stu. Dan's been Dan, and Johnny K has been Johnny K. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, and we'll see you shortly. Thank you, guys. Take care.